Well, time to put the new impeller on. Here's the old one. You can see it's got this shape to it where the arms are kind of twisted back, and that's when they get old, after they've been in there for a while, they'll get like that. When you get them new, the arms will stick straight out like that. Here's a better look at what I'm talking about. You can see that they stick straight out. And then what happens is, as it's rotating, it's going to be pushed like this inside the cover or the housing. That's why it's so important never to rotate or attempt to turn your motor in the wrong direction. In other words, you don't want to, like, for some reason, if you were manually turning the engine over, you wouldn't want to turn it counterclockwise looking down from the top, because you can imagine that this right now, if it was in the housing, it would want to move in this direction clockwise, and if you try to turn it backwards, what can happen is this can actually kind of get jammed up and pop over, and if it's in really bad shape, it will break. The rubber will be dry and not as resilient, and it will damage the impeller. So you always want to keep it in a clockwise rotation. And the other thing you want to do is, when we're putting this together, we're going to lube this all up. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put a coating of wheel bearing grease on that wear plate and the shaft. Put on some trial gloves and put a really good coating on the impeller, and then slide the impeller down over the keyway, a little woodruff key that I just stuck in the shaft there. Alright, now I need to get the cover in place. I've got it over on the keyway, and oh yeah, one more thing. I wasn't positive whether or not there was a definite way that this impeller had to face, but I noticed that this one, because of the way that the arms are bent, I know this is the direction it was going clockwise. So I know this side was facing up and this side was facing down. On this side you can just see the brass internal part, and on this side you don't. And it's the same thing with the new one. So I've got the brass part facing down on the new one, because that's how this one was. So what I'm talking about is right here at that top area there, you don't see any brass, whereas on the other side you do. Alright, so now I've got to install the cover. Got the inside of the cover all lubed up also. So the trick here is I'm going to lower the cover down over the top, and as we're rotating the shaft clockwise, we're going to get those fingers to squeeze in into position so that the cover will go all the way down, and then continue to rotate it as we're pushing downward on the cover so that we don't damage any of the fingers on the impeller. Alright, I had to get it up off the floor in my jaws of my vise. I got a small rag in there to keep it from getting too scratched up, and I don't have it really tight, but I need to get it off the floor because when I turn the shaft, the prop tries to turn, because this type of electric drive, when there's no voltage applied to either one of the solenoids, it's not in neutral, it's actually in gear. Alright, it's a little tricky, but it can be done. So now I've got that mounted, and the interesting thing is, on this model year, there's no O-ring or gasket that appears responsible for sealing this down to the plate here, so I did not put anything in there. And again, we're only going to be really holding it on by 3 bolts because the 4th one snapped, and it's going to be too much of a job to repair that. Well, I found a cap screw to replace one of the snapped ones, and so I tightened these back too, and I was going to tighten this one, and then I remembered I want to make sure I know exactly where this bracket is oriented, because I think this feels flat right here. This feels flat right here, so I'm pretty sure this was the part that was clamped by this. But then I think this was bent up, so I think that when it's in the bent up position, you can't even see this cap screw. Well, it's one of the great things about shooting video. I can go back and look at my own videos of disassembly and see how this went, and I was right. Basically, I'm going to tighten this bolt and then bend this up, and it's going to cover that, and then this groove right here actually locks into a spot on the bracket that goes on top here, which I'll be installing next. Alright, so next up we deal with this little bracket right here, and this goes on facing down like that, and that retains a grommet like this that one of the tubes is actually going to insert into. And then in here rides a seal. This is the seal that came out of there. Now the interesting thing is that on one website it showed that the two seals inside that water pump, inside that bearing cap assembly below the water pump, that were identical, are supposedly the same exact part number as this seal which goes in here. On another site it shows that this is a different part number. So I ordered 3 identical seals, 2 for that cap assembly and then the third one to go in here, and hopefully it's going to be the right one to fit in here. So we'll find out. Alright, now the way this seal went in there was, this actually goes on like that. When I turned it upside down, the groove on this seal, this is actually one of the seals from the bearing cap, because the seal that I had to take out of here got kind of destroyed, but the groove was facing up when I have it upside down like this. So this seal has to go in like this, so that when I invert it and it's on the shaft, it'll be like this. That's the way the old one came out, so that's the way the new one's going to go in. Alright, so now the seal is in. Okay, I just opened the envelope with the grommets and looked on the packing list and said I ordered 4 of these. So I'll have to look and see where the other 3 go. I'm sure I had a good reason for it, but I know one of them goes right on top here, right down on the pipe hole that's closest to the impeller, which I believe is the intake line. It goes right in like that, and then actually gets held in or retained by the fact that this cap comes down over it. So I'm going to put a little bit of lube on that, lip there, and run this down. Just one correction there. I think this must be the output, because this one actually gets capped off completely. And I think this is capped off because I think on some models this might be water going into the pump. Not sure. I think on my old Johnson there were two lines that hooked into here, and on this one appears there's only one line, and then the other part that has to do with water transfer is right here. There's a big gasket that goes in here. Alright, I just finished installing this cap, this cover. There's only 2 screws right here, and then this cable right here has a indentation or a skinny section there that snaps right into this this clip on here. So that acts to keep the cable out of the way when you're putting the whole unit together. So we're getting close now. Alright, during reassembly I've been kind of keeping track of my parts here and noticing what I've replaced and what still has to be replaced, and just looking here, I've still got 3 of these grommets here, which I'm not sure exactly where they're going to go, but I'll figure it out. This is pretty easy. These are 2 hard plastic washers. I know these are for the drain and fill screws on the bottom end. This is this weird gasket thing, which I remember that was really all mushy and destroyed, so I know where that goes. This O-ring, when I originally took the machine apart, I found an O-ring that was actually what's left of an O-ring was down here sitting on top of that weird mushy stuff right here. But this O-ring that I found here actually belongs, it's this small one, and it belongs in this groove right up the top here. And I believe it helps make sure that no moisture can get up inside there, so that that doesn't end up getting seized into the bottom of the power head. So that's all fine and dandy. What's giving me pause right now is this O-ring. This large diameter fat O-ring right here. I don't know where that goes. So now I've got to go back and look at the parts manual and figure out what the heck that is. Luckily, I've got the part number right here. So it's a 1/8. It's kind of hard to read, but I'm going to be able to figure it out from the parts list. Yeah, this is a 187117 O-ring. Let's see if I can't figure out where that goes.